Hi everyone, I'm Mama J, and today's video I would like to show you how I like to make granny square. And when we're done, I'm going to show you the blocking board that I use and how I block them to make them a uniform square, and so they all match and they're all the same size. Granny square can really be any size you want it to be. I've seen where people just use 2 or 3 rows and make a lot smaller pieces and attach all of them together. I've seen 12 by 12. I've seen one blanket that's one big solid granny square where you're not making individual pieces, but the pattern itself is what makes this a granny square. So you can kind of design it the way you want to using that pattern and keeping that in mind. So my samples here, I've got 5 rows. And I'm going to make all of my pieces the same, and after I get them blocked, then I'm going to attach them together to make a blanket. Granny square stitch does make a more open stitch, so this may not be appropriate for a baby blanket due to the amount of holes, unless it's going to be more of a decorative piece in the baby's room. Alright, so for today's video, I'm going to be using this Hobbii yarn, Mega Ball. I just had to try this out. I have not made a blanket or washed anything using this yarn yet, so I can't say how it holds up. But just this short time that I have been working with it, I do like it. It is 100% acrylic. It's not as rough as most acrylics tend to be. This yarn calls for a 5.5 to a 6mm crochet hook. So today I'm going to be using my Susan Bates 6mm. So to create a granny square, you have to begin with the circle. I prefer making the magic ring. I have seen patterns where you chain 4 and then you work back into that first chain, making your ring, and then you crochet into that ring. I personally like the magic ring because I like to tighten that center circle up a little better. This here. All right. So to make a magic ring, we're going to take the tail of our yarn, not the working side. We're going to take the tail and put it over the back of our 2 fingers. We're going to hold it with our thumb. And then we're just going to wrap around and turn our hand and cross those 2 over. Okay? So now I like to wrap it around my pinky finger a little bit just so I can keep this strand a little tighter. So we're going to slip our hook under that the front strand, and we're going to grab that other yarn, pull it under, and then twist. So we've got a nice tight loop on our hook. Okay, now we're going to take that other strand that we were holding with our pinky finger, yarn over, and pull through another loop. Okay, so we can tighten that down a little bit. And if you want to make the ring a little smaller, sometimes easier to hold that way. So in a granny square, we have 3 double crochet in each of these clusters. In between, we have chain 2. So to start this center ring, we want 4 sets of 3 double crochet, and then we're going to have chain 2 in between each of those, and that's going to create our 4 corners here. So for the first double crochet, we're going to chain 2. Some people chain 3, but I feel like that leaves too much of a space when you're doing a slip stitch to join one corner to another. So that's 1, and that chain 2 is going to count as a double crochet throughout the pattern. So there's 2. And 3. All right, we want to chain 2. We're going to do 3 more double crochet inside that circle. All right, that's 3. And we're going to chain 2 again. We're going to go 3 double crochet into that circle. And third one. All right, I'm going to just tighten that down a little bit and push these together. You can see our square starting to take shape. So now we have 3 of those sets of 3 double crochet, and remember I said we need 4. So we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to do our 4th set of double crochet inside that ring. It's 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now we can just tighten that down, close that hole up in the middle. All right, so you can see we've got the 3 corners. Now we just need to create a 4th here. And to do that, we're still going to chain 2 in between each set of 3. And then we're going to find the top of that chain 2 where we started that double crochet. So we're just going to insert our hook there. And then we're going to slip stitch. Okay. So now we've got our center square. So with the granny square, if you don't turn your work, eventually this pattern is going to look like it begins to spiral. So you want to make sure at the end of each row you're turning your work, whether you're color changing or not. You still need, once you connect these 2 sets of 3 and you slip stitch into that, you need to make sure to turn that work. Now, most patterns would have you chaining again at this point, but let me show you why I don't do that. See how that is on top of this chain? I want it inside my square. I want it inside that corner space. So let's go back. Now we're going to turn our work, and I'm actually just going to insert my hook into that space, and I'm going to single crochet, and I'm just going to tighten that down. So now when I do that first double crochet, it's going to look like it's coming in the middle of that corner space like all the others will. So now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do 2 double crochet for my first cluster. All right, so once we've turned and we're starting our next row, this first corner, we're only going to start with 3 double crochet. We're going to finish that off as we come around this direction. We're going to do an additional 3 double crochet. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to link them together like we did this first row. But when we first get started, we're only doing 3 double crochet into that corner. So now we're jumping over to the next corner, and we're going to do 3 double crochet to start. Okay, now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to do 3 more double crochet in that same corner space. All right, here's 2 and 3, and we're just going to do that again in the next corner. We're going to double crochet 3 times. It's 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to chain 2, and then 3 more double crochet into that corner. It's 2. And 3. So we've got 3, chain 2 and 3. All right, we're jumping over to the next corner. It's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2. There's 1, 2, and 3. All right, so this is where we started. We've got 3 double crochet already. So now we just need to jump over into that corner space and do 3 more double crochet. All right, so there's our 3 and 3. Now we need to chain 2, and then we're going to find the top of that chain 2 in our first double crochet. And you always want to make sure when you're hitting that chain 2 that you've got both loops of that V on your hook, because if you just do one, it's going to stretch it out. Let me just catch one and show you what I mean. So if you just do one, you're stretching that out a little too much. So you want to make sure you're catching the bulk of that chain to do your slip stitch. And you can just tighten everything down. So now we've got all 4 corners of our first 2 rows. So in my sample, the next color we're going to bring in is gray. So to do a color change with Granny Square, I generally, when I'm using multiple colors in a piece, I do a magic knot to color join. It is not that simple to do with a Granny Square, and it does tend to make the join corners a little bulky because of that knot. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to trim off, and then I'm going to just join the colors. All right, so I've trimmed that off, and I just want to slip stitch a little. I should have done that before I trimmed, but so we can secure this, I want to move this yarn over to this center space here. So I'm just going to do that by slip stitching. Okay, so then I'm going to pull it through that last slip stitch and just tie it off. And now when I double crochet into this little space here, it's going to be a little more secure for this piece here. All right, so remember I said we need to turn. So where I ended is not where I want to join. So I'm going to turn my work, and I'm just going to join in one of these other corners. So I'm going to bring in my gray. And however you join colors is good. It's just up to you. I like to just put a loop on my hook, put both strands of the yarn through the area where I'm pulling color in, and then I'm just going to do a chain with both of those pieces of yarn. Now I'm going to drop my tail, and then I'm going to do my chain 2. So again, there's my first double crochet, and it appears to be right in the center of that corner space. So we're going to do 2 more double crochet. Okay, and just like we did with the previous row, in this first corner, we're not going to do 2 sets of 3 until we come around this side here. So the next, this is where I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to have that set of 3 double crochet in between the corners. There's no chains in between. We're just going to yarn over and jump over into that space in between. And we're going to do 3 double crochet. There's 2. And there's 3. Now to our corner. And this is the entire pattern. Every row that you add, you're going to add another center between your corners. But you're always going to have 4 corners. And then each corner, you're going to do 2 sets of 3 double crochet with chain 2 in between. So there's our first set of 3. Going to chain 2 and then do 3 more. There's 2 and 3. All right, now we're working in this center space again. We're just going to jump over, do 3 double crochet. There's 2. And 3. Pull up some yarn here. All right, now we're working into the corner. There's 2. And 3. So now we're going to chain 2 and then 3 more double crochet. Okay, now we're back to this center space, and remember, we want to make sure that we're holding this yarn down so we can crochet over that. There's 1, 2, and 3. All right, into our corner. There's 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and then 3 double crochet. We're in that same corner space. There's 1, there's 2, and 3. All right, so we're on that last side. We're going to do the 3 double crochet into that center space. And we're not working into the chains or to the stitches from the previous row. We're working into the space created from the previous row. Okay, there's 3. Now we just need to finish off this square with 3 more double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch to join. That's 1, 2, 2 and 3, chain 2. We're going to find the top of that chain 2, and we are going to slip stitch to close that corner, tighten that down. All right, so that is our third row. For this video, we're not going to continue on with the pattern because the pattern is the same. Every additional row that you do, you're adding a space in between your corners. So this next row, I'm going to have 3 spaces in between. The next row, I have 4 spaces in between my corners. So just continue with your piece until you have it the size that you need. If you need to rewind the video a little bit to watch the color change, or watch when I turn my work and I advance into that corner space. All right, so this is the blocking board that I have. I picked this up on Amazon. I'm working with a 5.5 inch square. So I'm just going to mark my 2 corners with that. Okay, so what I've done, I went ahead and I got these a little damp. They're not soaking wet, they're just a little damp. I'm just going to slide those right on to the pegs. All right, so we want to make sure I just want to check this and make sure we're at 5.5, and we are. And then this last one, we just want to make sure we're in the same row here and here. All right, so now all we need to do is grab these sides and stretch them out. One good way to tell if you're stretching too far is I try to get a 6-inch block out of these. But when I stretched these center spaces, they did not match up with the holes. They were kind of off-centered. So I felt like that was just giving me the notion that I was stretching it too far. So I dropped that back down to the 5.5 inch block. Okay, let's move on to the next side. And we just want to make sure we do this on all 4 sides, because with those corners pulled out like that, these, you can see here where this is kind of rolling in already. You want to make sure you've got a straight line with that. So we're going to pull all these edges out even with our corners. Just make sure it's all in the same row. And our last one here. All right, so now I'm just going to lift up on them a little bit because they are damp. I just want to make sure we've got a little bit of airflow under there. What I plan on doing, I'm going to continue making these until I have enough to make a full blanket. And I'm going to come back and do probably just a short video showing how I attach the 2 pieces together. You can make these whatever size you want. If you want just the small 2-row square, you want a 3-row square, it's entirely up to you. The colors that you use, the patterns that you use, you can have all of the sections be identical. You can have a solid color per square and then just have a multitude of colors within the full piece. Just be creative, work with colors, use up scrap yarn, whatever you want to do. All right, so with that, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope this has inspired you to try your hand at making a granny square. So until next time, have a great day.